Hello and welcome. I'm Reverend Yan, founder of Evolving Enneagram.
And I'm Angela Joy, Evolving Enneagram faculty.
If you've been seeking a compassion-based, contemplative approach to Enneagram-informed transformation, you are most certainly in the right place. This is where contemplation meets the Enneagram. So we are in week 7 of a 12-week Sunday Talk series based on the theme Evolving Toward a Unifying Vision. And the specific theme for the next 2 weeks is critical thinking and creative visioning. Today's talk is titled Creative Visioning for the 9 Types of Conscious Evolutionaries. So we're going to take this in 3 parts. I'm just going to introduce the topic briefly and then hand it over to Angela, and she'll offer 5 guidelines for conscious evolutionaries. And then I will share in part 3 creative visioning by Enneagram type. So, ready? Let's begin. So, part 1. At Evolving Enneagram, we're interested in what it means to live consciously, right? And more specifically, as conscious creators, or you might say co-creators of our individual and shared reality. So there's this idea that having reached a point in our evolution, like our biological evolution, where what used to be this unconscious process, i.e., the process of evolution, has now become conscious. So we have a conscious say and participation in this next stage of, again, our individual as well as our collective evolution. Today, we want to focus on what it means to open up more fully to this creative power that we believe we all have. And as we enter into this, I want to say that for me personally, the journey into feeling this creative power isn't so much this like egoic like willfulness that comes from like, okay, I will do this, but from a contemplative perspective, my stance becomes more like I'm willing. And that feels to me just a little bit more surrendered in my aspect, in my bearing. And okay, to be very clear though, that doesn't mean it's every day. Some days I don't feel willing. I don't feel surrendered at all. I feel like I'm efforting and making my way. But the idea that I want to invite on this path of conscious evolution is that through that opening of willingness, there's this receptivity to a power greater than ourselves. Some of us might call it God, spirit, by whatever name, and that this is the difference between doing it from the stance of believing in the separate self that is efforting and then just wanting what I want in the world. And so today I want to draw from some teachings that I learned all the way back in seminary, way back when, on conscious evolution, actually a class that I took. My professor was a Unity minister named Reverend Robert Brumet, and I took a class specifically on the topic of conscious evolution with him. He's an insight meditation teacher and the author of a book that we've recommended before, which is called Birthing a Greater Reality. And in this book, he offers 5 helpful guidelines for conscious evolutionaries. And I will invite Angela now to share these guidelines and some of her insights about them with you. So, Angela.
So, in part 2, we are going to discuss these 5 helpful guidelines for conscious evolutionaries by Robert Brumet. Number 1, make friends with paradox. The nature of existence itself is paradoxical. These paradoxes exist only in the human mind, not in reality. Of course, paradox meaning when two seemingly contradictory, even perhaps opposite things might actually be true. They can exist together and in reality, but it just seems like opposite for us. So the ability to hold that and to be able to sit with that. Number 2, cultivate the power of intention and attention. Attention is an effective tool of conscious evolution. Intention combined with attention is a powerful combination in determining our life direction. When we align our intention with that of evolution, something very powerful is activated. A good example of this might be, hey, I have the intention to wash the dishes, but if my attention gets distracted, I may never get to the dishwasher. So being able to cultivate the combination of these two together. Number three, that which we desire most is that which desires. I'm going to read that again. That which we desire most is that which desires. Desire is a great paradox. It can imprison or liberate us. When we can allow desire to arise without action or suppression, we open to the deepest desire of our heart. And this desire is intimately connected with the deepest needs of humanity, the earth, and the universe itself. When we're talking about desires, it's easy to maybe misuse or use this word in different ways. I know when I first read this, what came up for me was some of my old Christian teaching, that desires lead us into sin. And at first, my reaction was like, oh, I don't believe that's true anymore. And then when I started to wrestle with this idea, this paradox, if you will, I remembered what Brumet said here about it can imprison or liberate us. When I'm unconscious in my desire, it may manifest in my passions and fixations of my type. And when I can sit with my desire without action, without pushing it away, without judging it, and just open up to that, then it can begin to unfold and be an expression of these human needs that are universal with all of us. Number five, embrace everything, be attached to nothing. We integrate our past by embracing all parts of ourselves. To embrace all of ourselves means that we accept, hold compassion, and release at the appropriate time. Non attachment occurs when we are aware of everything, even our attachments, and we embrace it all with compassion. And then number five, listen, listen, listen. The universe speaks in 1,000 ways. Truth is what we are. The guidance that we seek is closer than our next breath. Embrace the question and then mindfully live out the answer. And with that, I will hand it back over to Nian for part three.
Amazing, Angela. Thank you. Yeah, I feel that there was just so much there in what Angela shared that if you just want to stop the video now and take it in or review it, I wouldn't blame you at all. But I want to take it forward a little bit. This invitation to listening, especially at the end of Angela's share, for me really launches into this space of, again, that willingness, that receptivity, this space for a wisdom and perhaps a love, a truth greater than that which is held by this little small self that we normally identify with, is what we're talking about here today. And moving into part three, I want to focus on this capacity for creative visioning across the 9 types, for those of us who would be conscious evolutionaries. And I want to start by saying that from the unity tradition that I come from, that I'm ordained in, we very much teach and believe in this power of intention. And I know when you hear power of intention, that can sound kind of woo-woo, right? But even as Angela said, it's like before you could actually go to the dishwasher, you start with this invisible intention, that's it's not the action yet to go there. That precedes my intention to raise my hand, precedes the movement of my hand. And so it's just important to know that this is something we live with on a daily basis. And most of us are aware that we have conscious intentions and then unconscious intentions around things, right? Consciously, I intended to do that. I've heard, certain artists were like, oh, I didn't consciously intend for that to be like so sexual, but it's like all sexual. So that could be like an unconscious intention leaking out. So we want to be aware of that as we process our what it means to live from a conscious place in our creation, right? And I would even say from a unity perspective, we talk about the super conscious, meaning it's just one term we use to describe like when the divine, like the divine conscious, the higher power in us is operating, that it's even more than just our conscious mind. And we can invite that intentionally in, going again from that place where we move away from just the um, I'm a separate self and I want. As Angela mentioned, I think like this historical idea of like desires, people just doing what they want and getting what they want isn't in service to the world, right? So we want to make a clear distinction between that. And as I mentioned earlier, this notion of surrendering our will comes in. And I know it's very counter to the Western way that is all about like my autonomy and my will. But if you believe that your true nature is actually one with the divine, then what we're talking about is actually living your authentic wants by surrendering to divine will. And then, of course, if you've been involved with Evolving Enneagram for a while, you know that centering prayer that is this prayer of intention where we are, in fact, doing that over and over again, surrendering what we think we need to think about or do, and just open into this mystery that is spirit or love or light. And so, centering prayer is a core practice that opens to this creative power that comes from source rather than from ego, from that higher source. And as we do so, again, we live into not just this amorphous oneness, but what we believe is into our greater like individuality, moving from personality to individuality, to something very unique, but that is full of the divine. And I love these words from Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith in his book, Life Visioning. Within our core self is an indelible blueprint of unrivaled individuality, the singular being that each of us exists to express. In this three-dimensional movie called Life, there are no stand-ins, body doubles, or understudies. No one can fill in for us by proxy. Realization of this truth alone eliminates the need to imitate, conform, limit, or betray our loyalty to the originality of self with a capital S there. Imagine the relief of removing your carefully crafted mask, fashioned by societal forms of conditioning, and instead responding to what comes into your experience directly from your authentic self. One of the first principles to honor in your relationship with yourself is to respect and trust your own inner voice. This form of trust is the way of the heart, the epitome of well-being. Hmm. So yes, creative visioning then within this spiritual context refers to this practice of using creative acts like visualization, art, writing to access this deeper, or meditation, as we mentioned before, access this deeper connection with one's inner self, with one's higher power, the universe, and drawing inspiration from that. And then what comes out then is a work of art, not necessarily formal art, but the life as art, right? And so just allowing that space, especially at this moment when many people I talk to feel a certain degree of like they're just looking at the world, not coming from the inside out, but just coming from the outside in. We're bombarded by messages that might not be so hopeful. But what happens when we turn within to this infinite creativity within ourselves and then bring that and draw that forward out into the world? That's what we're talking about today. So today I want to share with you some ideas for sparking inspired living, visioning. And I hope these suggestions are taken just as suggestions, that they don't limit you at all in your creative process, but are just here to catalyze, if anything, that process. And I want to say also that in my upcoming book, The Enneagram of the Soul, there's a chapter on the lives we create. It's on day 32, and some of these teachings are actually drawn straight from that. So again, you're getting it before the book comes out. So for Enneagram Type 1, oh, and then another thing I want to say is that I want to offer suggestions on what this might look like for your personal or individual vision, but also what it might look like as you draw that vision forward in service to the whole. So personal and global vision. For Enneagram Type 1, for your personal vision, if your entire week was a blank canvas, what activities would you paint to represent joy, delight, or spontaneity? For your global vision, imagine what might a more joyful world look like? Enneagram Type 2, personal vision. If you created something for yourself alone, what would it be? Global vision. This is kind of tricky here. What would the world look like if it met more of what you really need? Dream indulgently. What would the world look like if it met more of what you really need? And why did I emphasize this? Because you will tend to think of, oh, we need a world where they need this stuff, not me, but some kind of owning something personal for you. Enneagram 3, personal vision. If you could draw a face that accurately portrays what you truly feel today, what image would you see? Maybe, even if you just draw stick figures, maybe you want to draw it as well. Global vision. Imagine that your next goal is creating an amazing world, and you know that you can't do it alone. So make up at least 3 characters. Give them names if give them names, give them characteristics, all the things. Make up at least 3 characters who will be your teammates who can offer gifts that you do not have. Team playing, right? 4, your personal vision. Spend 5 to 10 minutes today imagining yourself in the here and now with every quality you think you've been missing. What would it feel like to be this very person? Global vision. If you knew that you are whole right now, what actions would you take? Enneagram 5, personal vision. If you wrote an autobiography highlighting your life, how many different activities would you write about? How many involve thinking or researching? And thinking includes like idealizations and fantasies. If you were to add a new activity you haven't yet done, but hope to do, what would it be? Global vision. Vision yourself taking action in a way that expresses generosity. What does that look like for you? Type 6. Spend 5 to 10 minutes today visualizing yourself in a world where everything turns out great. What are you doing? Use as many of your senses as possible in this exercise. Global vision. Imagine yourself showing up with faith and courage right now. What do you see yourself doing? Type 7, personal vision. Take 5 to 10 minutes to consider the landscape of your heart. Look closely. What does it look like? What feelings come up for you as you imagine this scene? And global vision. What does it look like to embrace darkness as well as the light in the world? Then create something visual or through movement as your reflection or expression of that embrace. For the type 8, personal vision. If you built a vacation home for your inner child, what would your home include and why? Global vision. What might a global home filled with more tenderness look like? And finally, type 9, personal vision. If you wrote, or heck, sang a ballad of your life, who would be the main character? Would it even be you? Describe this person. What would be the key themes of your song so far in this ballad? Global vision. What bold, assertive, or heroic deed might the main character be needing to take next? Be creative. Remember, this is not about formally being artists or creating great art. It's about recognizing that we are already part of the natural creative process. And sometimes the messiness of grappling with art and images and imagery helps to open us up to something more than what our regular conscious minds are already thinking. Let yourself be surprised by your own process. And so I want to include by saying, usually we end it by saying, let's pray. But today, Angela, what are we going to say?
Hey, let's play.
Or said snore. Love you all. Bye.